mean, what next, right? This is over. It's very over, and they are very out. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning from Newark, New Jersey. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. And soon, all you'll have is Steelers and Pirates. Oh, Devils 5, Penguins 2. The outcome doesn't at all tell the story of how awful this performance was. And there was some stuff that maybe reflected positively on some of the participants, but not a whole heck of a lot. Honestly, I'm out of analysis. I feel like, and I just finished writing the column that's on DK Pittsburgh Sports. You can find at the top of the site, top of the app. I feel like I've written it 100 times this season. It's the same stuff. They couldn't score on a goalie with a sub 900 save percentage. They've won 8 out of 23 such games this season. 8 out of 23. They couldn't defend. Ryan Graves is just a disaster. And again, I'm not breaking some big hot news there. I mean, he's been a disaster since he's been acquired. There hasn't even been a positive stretch for him. Evgeny Malkin taking down Jack Hughes in the neutral zone just because he's frustrated that he can't keep up with a 22-year-old who's one of the fastest skaters in the league. That's not just being old. That's being old and not coming to grips with it and not being mature about it. And speaking of that problem, this was Mike Sullivan's answer when asked about Gino's penalty.
It started with our lack of puck management in the offensive zone. We make a whole play in the high ice instead of putting the puck back down below the goal line. And that feeds their transition game. And then we end up spending whatever it was, 25, 30 seconds in our defensive zone defending, and then we get tired. And when you get tired, that's when you make mistakes and you tend to take penalties, and that was a result of it. So it's a snowball effect. It's not just any one thing. It's a combination of events or an accumulation of events that result in those types of things. And we have control over that, and we didn't control that situation. I thought the second period we were the better team. We had a number of really good looks, and the puck didn't go in the net for us. Give their goalie credit. He made a couple of big saves for him. Having said that, I thought Jars made some big ones for us, and so that was a big part of the game without a doubt.
I mean, he just effectively blamed everybody but Gino. The turnover that he's referencing there was made by Michael Bunting across the New Jersey blue line. Yeah, it was a bad turnover, but not everything is always everyone else's fault except for the superstars. It's okay to say, boy, Gino sure would like to have that one back or whatever. But he came out with 17 different ways to say, well, that wouldn't have happened if this. Come on, it still doesn't have to happen. It's just a really stale script. It really, really needs to end sooner rather than later. I can't believe there's still more than a dozen games of this going into the middle of next month. Why? Just stop now. Look, a lot like what the players themselves had been saying over the past week or so, I was very much in favor of the push to get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I believed, and by the way, still do, there's value in getting to the playoffs. Everyone benefits. Everyone gets a little bit better, but especially your younger guys. I would love to have seen Valtteri Puustinen pick up that experience. I would love to have seen Drew O'Connor barreling through guys. Heck, maybe they could have turned the whole thing into a science project and brought up Sam Poulin and some other kids and said, here, go nuts. This is what it's like. This is what you're going to have to do eventually. But then to come out the way they did in this game, that's probably the thing that just really leaps out. There's other stuff. I mentioned Gino's penalty, Sid getting robbed, and I mean robbed by Jake Allen in the first period on an unbelievable desperation save with the paddle of his stick, and Sid was shooting at what was basically an open net. You can get into any one of those things. You can get into turning points. You can get into little pivots here or there. But this was lost in the first few minutes. One team came to play. The other team didn't. And I know the head coach is more responsible for that than anybody. He's not alone. You'd like for your leadership group in the locker room to ensure that everybody's ready. But that wasn't it. And I asked Sullivan, as the guy who's mainly responsible for this, why? What happened? How to account for the start? I mean, you even things out after about 9-10 minutes or so, but how to account for that start?
Yeah. Well, the start was disappointing. They come out with a lot of pace. We didn't match the urgency, and I thought we grabbed a hold of it after the first, whatever it was, 7, 8, 9 minutes. But the first bit of the first period, they certainly had momentum early on.
Yeah, disappointing. Disappointing is a good word. Disappointing. This whole season has been disappointing. Almost everything, I should say, associated with it has been disappointing. From Kyle Dubas's decisions, quite possibly what's going to wind up being the worst contract in franchise history, with Graves getting 6 years and $27 million. 6 years and $27 million, a $12 million signing bonus. And he's this at the beginning of it, in what's supposed to be the prime of his career? That should be terrifying. That's twice the amount of the Jack Johnson contract that freaked everybody out. I don't know. I guess we've got all summer to do this. I asked Sid in not so many words after the game, what now? What happens now?
What's the general mindset right now, Sid? I mean, obviously, desperation can only take on so many levels,
Yeah, I mean, whatever the highest level is, that's where we're at. I think that's the situation we're in, and there's nothing else to do other than play with some urgency and desperation, and try to get it a game at a time here.
Yeah, you can hear it in his voice, right? They are done. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Peter, and it's one of the better ones I've gotten in a while. As simple as it is, Peter just asks, why are the Penguins so bad at finishing? And, after 60-some games, most of them in person, not to mention years of covering most of these particular players, you would think I'd come up with a concrete answer. There isn't one. They don't have one, so I sure don't have one. But I think I might be onto something with this. First, some ridiculous numbers to support your point. The Penguins are now averaging 2.90 goals per game. That's 25th in the NHL out of 32 teams. They are averaging 33.4 shots per game. That ranks third, as in third most in the league. So they're 25th in goals, third in volume of shots. And for the most part, the quality of their shots, meaning the quality of their chances, I should say, rivals the amount. It's not like they're, getting lousy looks to get those shots. It's not like they became, the Bruins where they just gun it from anywhere. Hurricanes do that too. So why can't they score? Well, the number one, and really the elephant in the room is the power play. The power play leads to all kinds of positives for you as an offense. Besides that you would just score more goals because you'd be scoring more power play goals. Things open up. When you get a lead, power play gets you the lead. Other team has to kind of come out of its shell a little bit. And you'll get more chances, better chances, odd man breaks. You'll get more goals. So the power play is in there. The power play is kind of in its own category, I think. But beyond that, when I see an entire roster, with the exception of Sidney Crosby, performing below their previous levels when it comes to goal scoring, when it comes to finishing, when it comes to just plain old shooting percentage, that tells me that it's a team-wide thing. And watching this game from the press box at Prudential Center, which is like carved into the roof, so you're kind of looking straight down, you're seeing the whole ice like a video game, like an old video game. Like I'm talking about NHL 94, where all that's missing is that hit sound. Puh, whenever somebody hits somebody. Puh. There was blood in one of those games too. I think it was 93, NHL 93. You'd fight and whoever would lose would like fall backward into a pool of blood. But anyway, what you see from up there, that bird's eye view, is that so many shots get wasted because nobody's at the net. Nobody's going there. I shouldn't say nobody. There are a couple of guys who do. And there are a couple of guys who really have no business doing it, but do it anyway and can't come close to converting on the chances that get created. Like Noel Acciari spent a lot of time at the net in the 9 minutes or whatever that he played here last night. It didn't matter. He's not going to finish anything. Emil Bemstrom went to the net, and who cares? What's he even doing here? What's his purpose? So because they don't have those presences at the net front and being productive at the net front, they're not a threat to anybody. The other team understands, look, we're just going to keep them to the perimeter because that's where they're happy being anyway. We'll play the puck. So they don't get worn down. They don't back off anybody. Ask yourself, for all the times you saw the Devils last night rushing up the ice, beating somebody one-on-one, it's the last time you saw one of the Penguins do that. You know why? Just nobody's worried about it. They're not worried about the gap they have to maintain. They're not worried about what that person might do if they swing wide or carry all the way behind. They are such an easy team to defend. And I'm saying that right now in the context of just physically expending yourself. The Devils can skate off that rink after congratulating Jake Allen on being the number one star, just like every goaltender is when they face the Penguins. And they haven't broken a bleeping sweat, which is why I'm going to continue to maintain that there can be middle ground here. Another of Kyle Dubas's mistakes, and no, this one does not rival handing $27 million to Ryan Graves, is not having a clue how to build a bottom six. And by the way, that was his reputation in Toronto too. What he and Mike Sullivan both acknowledged in training camp was that they had conceived a plan where the bottom six would be primarily defensive guys to help the Penguins become a tighter, more responsible group. Well, last night, Acciari, who was supposed to be one of these people, was on the ice for 15 New Jersey shot attempts and 3 Pittsburgh shot attempts. That's like not playing at all. What the team actually needs, and I'm not saying this to you as something new now, I brought this up last summer, was a bunch of bangers, a bunch of guys who will go out there and raise hell, because as long as you're not going to score, you might as well do something. And that's the part that seems to be getting missed with this club right now. They put people out there who are supposed to do something and don't, and then they're left having no impact at all. And we've seen this now from this general manager. We saw it from the previous general manager. And maybe that's because they're listening to the coach. Maybe it's because they just don't know what the hell they're doing. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure anyway, which it is. But there's got to be some kind of line that gets crossed as far as making this team more challenging to face. And part of that, yes, absolutely, is being physical. Because the last time that a Mike Sullivan team looked competitive, and I mean really competitive, it was when they had Brandon Tanev and a handful of other guys who were making stuff happen. It wasn't necessarily goals, it was sometimes goals. But for the most part, they were just making everybody on the rink uncomfortable. I appreciate the question. Again, really good one. Obviously could have done a whole show on it. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow after I fly back from Newark. Thanks so much for listening.